Hello, Chevre. How are you? I hope you're all gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. Healthy, strong, and happy, physically and spiritually. Hashem should help that all those that need a refuah shlema should be healed immediately, and that the magefa should stop now. There is a message which I really didn't speak about till now, and it's a wonder, because this is a Torah from the Alter Rebbe, which I would say is the number one Torah of the Alter Rebbe, of the first Chabad Rebbe, which the Rebbe repeated. And that is that we have to live with the times. The Alter Rebbe said, leben mit der Zeit, we have to live with the times, and then it was understood to mean with the Parsha Shavuos, with the weekly portion of the Torah. So that weekly portion is where you keep your eyes open and you listen and look out for the messages and the signs that Hashem is giving you. The first port of call, if you want to hear Hashem's message, is in the portion of the week. Hashem is speaking to you and telling you instructions and giving you guidance through the portion of the week. So, we will see how in this week's portion there's a direct connection to the dates that we're in now in the calendar, the Hebrew calendar. And this is one of the things that the Rebbe trained us always about connections. We once spoke about that. But before we begin, we'll start with the pasuk of the Rebbe's new kapitel. Actually, this is the pasuk that I said yesterday, and I'm saying it again because I believe it's so powerful. And yesterday, we spoke on pasuk Pei Zayin of kapitel Kuf Yotes, Kimat kiluni v'aretz v'ani le'zafti fikudecho, which means they almost annihilated me in the land, but I did not abandon your orders. And we mentioned what Rashi says, that even though they would have wiped me out, but I stood on my clarity. So yesterday I spoke how in this pasuk we see the test. If something becomes really your own, and you take responsibility, when something was taught to you, and it becomes completely united, and permeates and becomes part of your psyche and what you stand for completely. Not as something from without, but from within. And the test is when there's opposition. That's not how we spoke about it yesterday. But today I want to talk about it how Kimat kiluni va'aretz, I was almost annihilated. Which means that if we look at it in a certain sense with the naked eye, according to the simple laws of nature, I would have been finished. But vanila ezafti pikodecha, I held tight, I held strong to that power which is not of this world, Hashem, divinity, infinity, and that gave me the strength to overcome and to triumph. What is one of the unique psukim in this week's Parsha, where there is nothing else like it in the whole Torah, where there are two psukim? I'm not saying it's not like in the Torah, but it's discussed concerning these two psukim, where it says the famous words that we say when we open the Ark, the Aron, to take out the Torah in Shul, and we say in the davening, Vihehi b'nesua Aron vayem Moshe, Kom Hashem v'yifutzei v'echo, v'yinusu misanecho mipanecho. We say that verse, and that verse is in this week's Parsha. And then there's another verse which says, as is well known, these two verses are preceded with an inverted nun and end with an inverted nun, an upside down nun. And Rashi, on the spot, says, the Torah made special signs for this passage, these verses were not really in the proper place. If we look at it according to the flow, it should have been somewhere else, and therefore the Torah put these two upside down nuns before the verse and after the second verse. But in the Gemara, where it talks about it, it also points out that in a certain sense, we could look at these two verses as a separate book of the Torah. Obviously, if you go over to any child and you say, how many books of Moses are there? Chamishi Chumshe Torah, that's the usual answer. But there's another count, and we count in the other count in a certain sense, these two verses by themselves as an entire Torah, as an entire book. So therefore, that means that in these two verses themselves is concentrate monumental, epic lessons and instructions for life. And that's why even though there are only two verses, it's considered an entire book. So there's many explanations. But before we get into the explanations, and maybe we'll speak about it tomorrow, I'm not sure, there's the point that on one level, what do we learn from these verses? Vyhi b'nsua is talking how as the ark traveled. So in other words, the message over here, and this is the connection to the date that we're in, right after Shavuos, and after the days of Tashlumin, and we're going out into the world as we spoke previously. So therefore we have in this week's Parsha the message of Vyhi b'nsua. How do we travel? How do we go into the desert and bring light into the desert? First, by having the weapon, the Torah. Hashem oiz lamitin. Hashem gives us the power, a weapon, and that is the Torah. And the Torah is able to illuminate all darkness and transform all negativity into positivity. There's a famous verse that is brought down in Chassidus, and it's from Yirmiyahu, where it speaks about Hashem told the Jewish people, Koyamar Hashem, Zechati lo chesed na'oriך, avas kol isoich, lechtech achai bamidbar, be'eretz lo zroua. It's a famous verse, and it says that Hashem says, I recall for you the kindness of your youth. We're addressing the Jewish nation. The love of your nuptials. You're following me into the wilderness, as the Jews went into the wilderness after Yetzias Mitzrayim, into an unsown land. So Hashem is recalling the attachment, the dedication and loyalty of the Jewish nation to Hashem, that we followed Hashem into the desert. But there's more to it than just the fact that we followed Hashem into the desert. We actually were in the desert for 40 years. And the Rebbe explains that the point was to teach us how to elevate even a desert environment, a land which is bare, a land which is empty, a land which is desolate, and learn how to elevate even that and transform it. Now, I don't know what the source of this is, but I've heard many times a Hasidic interpretation where it says over here that we went into a desert, which is a Eretz lo zroua, which is usually translated as an unsown land. No, it's even worse than that. It's a Eretz lo zroua, where the loy is zroua. The negativity is implanted. So it's not that there's no positive there. It's not that there's no benefit or surplus. It's the opposite. It's a minus. There's a force, a negative force over there. The loy is over there, zroua. Which in a certain sense, we have to look at the world in that some ways. This is not a statement about the world. This is just that without Torah, without the light of Torah, and without being connected to a higher force, you have to realize there's loads of negativity and alien secular environment which could have a terrible, terrible effect on a person. And that's what it means, be'eretz lo zroua. I heard from Rabbi Simon Jacobson that a father once asked the Rebbe, why is it that we say that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree? And we see many times that the children are not following in their parents' footsteps. And the Rebbe answered, when do we say that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree? In normal weather. But when you have tornadoes and hurricanes, then it's not necessarily so. So we have to realize sometimes, in a certain sense, that there's tornadoes, there's hurricanes, there's a desert. What's a desert? Eretz lo zroua. There's negative, which is pulling as a force to the opposite side. So how do we counter that? Vyhi b'nsua. We have a oren, something which is out of this world. Hashem, Dvar Hashem, something which is a part of Hashem Himself. Yisrael oiraiso v'kutshebrichu kulachad. The Torah, which is Hashem, is a force and a power which is infinite. And as long as we hang on to that, we're able to overcome. And this is the famous story, which everyone knows, which really, really sheds light on so many subjects. Jewish immortality, and What does it mean? V'afal pi, oimdim aleim, every single generation. Vihi sha'omda, oimdim aleinu l'chaleseinu, and still we're here. So the story is the story with the Meir Primishlan. Everyone knows the story, that he was a Hasidic Rebbe, but he had much opposition in the town of Primishlan. And it was known that Rebbe Meir would go to the mikveh every single morning. He would break the ice in the river and go to the mikveh. So there were some people that heard about it and they were scoffing. It's impossible. He goes in the winter and the ice freezing weather where the roads are slippery with ice, etc. So they said it's impossible. So two people decided to follow him. Rebbe Meir went in his usual way and he walked up the hill, down the hill, and went into the river, broke the ice, and he went to the mikveh, normal. And he came back. Meanwhile, the two people that were following him, that were intending to mock him and scoff and make ridicule, they kept on slipping and bruising themselves and cutting themselves and hurting themselves. A couple hours later, they make it back to town and they start loudly proclaiming that Rebbe Meir is a Baal Meifes. He's an unbelievable miracle man. They saw the way he walked straight up a terrain which was not straight, went up and down, and it was icy and it was dangerous, and he just walked straight the whole time and nothing happened to him, and they couldn't do it, and they were slipping and hurting themselves the whole time. It's impossible. Meir is a miracle man, he's a Baal Meifes. So the whole town came running to the Meir and telling him, Meir, you heard us from Zuktavach, you hear what they're saying about you? As he's a Baal Meifes, that you're a miracle man. So Meir Premishlan answered, Meir is nishkim Baal Meifes. Talking about himself humbly and modestly. Meir is not a miracle man. Nor as misverbinden oben, fällt nicht herab hinten. But if you're connected above, you don't fall down below. These are words we could all live with our entire lives in so many situations, time and time again. We have to tell ourselves, as verbunden oben, fällt nicht herab unten. If you're connected above, you're connected to a superior force, to Hashem himself, who is infinite, and then you will not fall down below. And this is what we see in the Parsha that David HaMelech says, that even though he was almost annihilated, but he kept to the word. He hung on to Hashem and to the Torah, and Hashem oiz la meyitain. And through our keeping strong with the Torah, this will definitely bring Mashiach now. Posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yitbarach, your man in Melbourne.